Talking Music with Big Andy. In this week's show, DaiDrum, Talking Music with me, Big Andy. Hello, welcome to the podcast. I'm Big Andy, as you know, and I have with me David Foster, who is been making music with the project name DaiDrum. Hi, David.
Hi, Andy. How are you doing?
I'm fine, thank you very much. How are you?
Yeah, really good, thank you. Really good.
Good. Right, straight off the whole the thing about the name. It's mainly. I mean, it's just you.
It is just me. So I thought, well, I didn't particularly want to use my own name just because, I mean, there's actually quite a famous songwriter called David Foster. There's also, I think the guy who produced Chicago was David Foster, right. And it's sort of, I felt like it was a sort of project, and there are some other people involved with it. So I just wanted to call it something different. And so it's a bit of a Welsh thing. I went to a Welsh Cardiff University. I was a drummer in lots of bands over my life, and I played drums in a band called 8 Miles High, who were like a sort of, an American rock covers band, and I kind of got the nickname DaiDrum, sort of Welsh thing. So, and it sort of stuck with me with my old college mates, and so I used that as the project name because I couldn't think of anything better.
Well, no, it works. It's fine. It's fine. Although I must admit, when I first spoke to you online and that sort of thing, when I speak to you, I kind of thought you'd be Welsh.
So I'm married to a Welsh girl, but it's there, and so my kids are half Welsh.
So, as you say, you've been in bands for quite a while, that sort of thing. So, what made you decide to do this as a kind of solo project?
Yeah, so I'm a drummer first and foremost, and so I've played drums in various bands sort of all my life really, and so a few things really. I mean, I suppose the proper job was winding down, and that was sort of accelerated with sort of lockdown, so I'm only really sort of doing a day a week in my old sort of job, and so I had a load of time on my hands really, and it's a question of what you do to fill it. And I'd sort of been experimented with some recording things in the past, but it was really just having that time. And I started, funnily enough, resurrecting some old songs from an old band that I used to be in years ago, where we did a lot of songwriting and wrote our own material. And I started by kind of rehashing those and trying to sort of create some new mixes and recordings of those. And then I thought, well, why don't I just try and write some new music? And it sort of came from there really. And I suppose that the real sort of the real catalyst for it was actually, it was a weird one because it came out of my wife being quite seriously ill. So and so 18 months ago she had a brain hemorrhage. It was completely out of the blue. It was sort of Tuesday afternoon. She was perfectly well. A really bad headache came on. Didn't like the look of the way she was. Got her in hospital. 4 hours later, she's in an operating theatre, having a sort of craniotomy thing. So kind of deeply shocking. She's made virtually a full recovery, which is brilliant, and so we're very lucky.
Excellent.
But it actually became a catalyst to write a song when I'd kind of, when she'd recovered, and I'd kind of rationalised the whole experience and thought about it. I just felt I felt there was a song there, and so I wrote a song, and so the song that's actually about that experience is on the album called, and the song's called Blood Runs Through Your Veins. And so that was the first thing really. And off the back of that, I suppose I thought, well, I was quite pleased with it. I thought I might as well write some more.
Yeah. Wow, that's a hell of an experience to go through.
Yeah, I mean, it was completely and utterly shocking, and it was one of these. I mean, to go from her being perfectly well in the morning to that evening she's in surgery, and you've got a doctor consultant telling you, that there may not be a good outcome here. It's brain surgery. That's very serious, and so me and the kids had the most horrible evening of our lives waiting for her to come out of surgery. Unfortunately, she came out well, and I think that sort of experience changes you a little bit. And it's a weird one, because I tell her it's her fault that I wrote the album, really, because that was definitely the thing that sort of made me, kick-started me into sort of songwriting again.
Well, I mean, I'm glad to hear that she's fully recovered. But it does. I think that kind of thing affects you in a number of ways, and I think one thing I would say is that it kind of makes you realise just how short and how kind of I don't know, sort of temporary, if you like, life is. And it's too much of a waste not to do the things that you really want to do.
Yeah, that's exactly right, and that's exactly what that particular song is about. It's and I spent quite a lot of time on the lyric as well, because it is about that sort of fragility of life, and how you kind of you're a sort of conscious being, and you're living in the moment, and you forget actually there's various sort of mechanisms with flesh and blood that can suddenly go wrong and change everything, and that's the whole context of the song, really.
I mean, we all get caught up in the things that we need to do in order to be able to maintain our lifestyle, maintain ourselves in the world. The job, the paying the rent, paying the bills, doing all that kind of stuff, and you sometimes lose sight of the things that you really want to do, which make life enjoyable and make life worth living, because otherwise all you're doing is you're living just to pay the bills and do the job.
And I did probably 30 years of that with my professional career. I'm sort of an insurance broker by training, and so I've worked in the city and done all that, but I've always played music throughout all of that time, sort of pop bands and things, and so actually having the time now to devote to, and I enjoyed my career, it was great, but having the time now to do something that that I guess I've always really wanted to do, and sort of discovering that within me I can write some songs, that's been a really, I'm 57, you kind of get to that age, and it's quite nice to have a few surprises in your life, good surprises, rather than that, surprises where you think, oh, actually I didn't think I can necessarily do that. So it's been a really interesting 18 months in that way.
I think the thing as well is that you get to a point where you think, I know this sounds daft, but you got what have I got to lose? If people don't like it, it's not a big deal, really. But I think the other thing is now is we've got a thing now, which is like, it's the first time since probably, I think, the sort of late 70s, when it's so easily accessible for people to actually make music and put music out there in the world. And I don't think we've had that since the sort of like the first wave of like home studio systems, like the early Tascam stuff that you could do on cassettes and that sort of thing. You haven't really had that kind of freedom to be able to launch yourself out into the world.
That's right. My first sort of school musical band was kind of recording stuff on that kind of gear, those home recordings, and it was very much in the era of all that punk stuff, which I actually loved, that music, and because it sort of, frankly, didn't have to be very good at your instrument to actually sort of get a band together and make some music, and so it was a big sort of democratization of music, and then now that's done through the software that you can use, and the fact that in the back of my garage, I've got a little MIDI box, I've got a laptop, a couple of guitars and a microphone, and I can make some music.
Yeah.
And that is, you know, and you can make it to a decent quality as well, as a sort of, you know, pretty much an amateur music maker, and that's fantastic.
It is fantastic. I mean, I must admit, I spent most of my life involved in rock music, but I've discovered. I mean, I've always quite liked the stuff, but I've discovered that I can sit at my dining table while my wife's watching the TV, and sit there and knock out a kind of electro dance track.
Yeah.
In about an hour, you know.
Exactly.
And it's just quite incredible that I can do it in the living room while she's watching TV, you know. And it's just...
absolutely. It's fact with it, with a laptop and a pair of headphones. It's
brilliant. Absolutely, yeah.
I mean, I recorded the whole album is done via GarageBand as my software. So
right, okay.
Which I've been surprised at how sort of versatile it is.
Yeah, it is.
And you know, it's got a lot of, essentially the recordings are as good as the input. You know, it's just a digital workstation. So and it's a powerful tool, and it's been brilliant.
I started off using GarageBand. I've moved up now to Logic. But I mean, Logic basically is just GarageBand with a few add-ons, you know.
Exactly, and I probably, you know, probably will get Logic and do that. It's just I've kind of got comfortable with doing it on GarageBand at the moment, and so
why not?
Yeah.
He doesn't have any videos on his YouTube channel at the moment, so let's have a listen to some of the music from his album. The sort of music you're making now, it's kind of, I don't know what you would class it as, but it's kind of, to me, it's kind of got elements of like folk rock and prog rock and that kind of stuff to it. What would you say it was?
So I suppose it's definitely all of those things, because that's the music that I a lot of the music that I grew up listening to, as well as that sort of that punk stuff, which I was in the middle of. Love bands like the Jam and the Stranglers and all that. You know, my elder brother got me into King Crimson when I was like sort of, I don't know, I would have been 9 years old, and I remember listening to 21st Century Schizoid Man, and it blew my mind. I'd never ever heard anything like that. So alongside that sort of punk stuff, I listened to a lot of, you know, progressive music, the 70s, and I loved that sort of I loved that acoustic element with a lot of early 70s prog rock, you know, some of that early Genesis, those acoustic elements where they then went into the harder bits, some Yes, Caravan, that whole Canterbury scene. And I really loved that acoustic rock music, and I'm a big folk fan as well. So, you know, Fairport and Oyster Band and Moving Hearts and all those sorts of things. I love that sort of acoustic music, and so I didn't. I'm fairly certain most artists say that, but I didn't really set off with a genre in mind in terms of writing music. It was what came out, but it's going to be steeped in whatever you grew up and whatever you listen to and whatever you love. And for me, it was that kind of 70s progressive music. But I also your comment about, you know, the techno stuff and what you can do within digital workstations. I really didn't want it to be sort of to sound like that. I wanted to almost create something that sounded like it was recorded in 1973, if you like. So with those, you know, using, you know, things like, you know, lots of acoustic guitar, some piano, you know, a bit of mellotron, you know, those kinds of sounds, rather than necessarily a really kind of modern sound.
No, I understand that completely. I mean, it works really well. It does work really well. It's strange because it although it does have that kind of sound of the kind of 70s sort of prog stuff, as you say, like Yes, Caravan especially comes to mind, but it does have that kind of sound, but it doesn't sound, it sounds fresh. It doesn't sound like it's an old record.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm not entirely stuck in the 70s, so I listen to stuff from and you absorb so much stuff, don't you, in you, and particularly today we can listen to so much music, can't we? And you know, and so I'm a bit of a sponge in terms of, I listen to stuff and think, oh, I really like that, and I try to adapt that or steal that into my songs. So I mean, there's a few bits on the album which are, I love that, you know, the Ennio Morricone stuff, you know. So there's one particular track which is the first track on the album, which is the Ballad of Pearl Hart, which that it's meant to sort of conjure up that whole sort of kind of Western, you know, feel and you know, that lovely space that he got in his music. But when he came in with the instrumentation, it was a really big sort of wall of sound stuff. And so I don't, weird sort of influences you pick up, don't you?
I must admit that track was one that really kind of it did really grab me. I thought it was really good. I mean, it's a great opening track for an album. And again, you know, it's sort of going back to those acoustic things. So there's, you know, there's acoustic guitar, and then there's a sort of jaw harp, and then there's this sort of horn in the background, which is my daughter doing that on saxophone, and then me treating the sound to make it sound like some sort of kind of hunting horn type thing. So it's just, you know, playing with some sounds and ideas, really. It's and that's really, really great fun. Here's the first track from DaiDrum's album. So you got let me see, you got the album is called The Wild Winds Coldly Blow, and you also put a single track out from that called Distant Traveller.
Yes, that's right.
which is another track that I thought was really, really good. I really like that.
Thank you.
It's just kind of, not that there's anything wrong with any of the other tracks, but it's one of the ones that stood out for me, if you like.
Yeah.
So where, I mean, apart from obviously you said about your wife's illness giving you the impetus to do the whole thing, and specifically for one song, but where do your ideas come from for the others? Is it just from like things you've heard and the stuff that's influenced you, or are there specific things that have?
I mean, there's a bit of a theme with the album as well, I guess. So in terms of the sort of, you know, if you like the lyrical theme of the album, I mean, there's a load of different stuff going on there, but there's sort of an underlying thing, which again goes back to the experience I had with sort of my wife, really, of the idea the wild winds coldly blow, and that sort of sums up the last 18 months in many ways. It's been it's been a tough time for a lot of people. Yeah. And I suppose I'm not the only one that's been through a tough time in those 18 months with people in poor health, and so it's very much sort of born out of that. There's quite a lot of sort of, you know, in the lyrics, there's quite a lot of environmental stuff in there in terms of you know, what's going on with the planet. There's quite a lot of nature reference in it as well, which is all stuff that I'm sort of interested in, I suppose. But then there's some sort of weirder bits on there as well. You mentioned Distant Traveller, which is kind of probably, you know, it's probably maybe my favorite track on the album as well. And that's a real sort of throwback to the kind of stuff that probably the prog rock bands wrote about in the 70s, because it's about the Voyager probe, and it's got it's sort of, imagine this idea where it sort of assumes consciousness. So it's a very weird bit of sci-fi prog, really, and it was just kind of a sort of an interesting idea, and vaguely related to a Star Trek movie I saw once. But I kind of keep a note on my phone of things that I kind of want to write songs about now. And when I wrote the first song last year, and then I sort of ended up writing another one, and one of my daughters broke up with a partner, so I wrote a song about that. And I'm a bit of a sort of history buff, and so I was kind of interested. My daughters are quite sort of feminist in outlook, so I was looking at sort of female characters like Pearl Hart, who was a real life sort of, you know, bandit queen in the Wild West. And then there's the song about Annie Izzard, who was, you know, she was accused of being a witch, basically, and sort of, you know, the whole village turned against her. And I found this little story when I was researching. You know, I don't know. I just got, you go down a wormhole on the internet, don't you? And I found this story about this, you know, this real life story about this lady, and I thought there's a song in there somewhere. So so I suppose the ideas come from everywhere. And now that I'm writing songs, I'm very, you know, I'm very much looking out for ideas.
It kind of goes back to the old sort of style of you write things about folklore, you write things about and songs have always been like this historically. It's all about folklore. It's about things going on within the family, within the village family, as far as, you know, when it used to be sort of like the songs were written within a kind of like community group, and then they may have moved out of that from travelers coming through and picking them up, but they were written about things the community kind of all understood and all knew. And you're doing the same sort of thing there. You're writing about folklore things, you're writing about issues within the family and within, you know, and that affect the whole family. It's not just sort of like your personal, you know, life. It's about issues that affect everybody, and there are things that everyone else can relate to as well. It's you know, we all have situations and times in our life where we lose people, or we fear losing people, or you know, we have situations where we're in sort of torment or upset or that sort of thing. So you understand that kind of lyric and that kind of feel.
Definitely, and I think that's absolutely right. There's also a lot of reflective stuff in there as well, because it's that lockdown time, and we're all stuck in our homes with our own thoughts, and it was quite nice to put that to a sort of practical purpose. So there's a song there, "Life's About to Begin," which is very much a sort of thinking back in time and thinking over various stages of your life. and that was quite a nice one to write, and that's one of those where the lyric came really quickly, just because you're almost going back on memories and thinking of various times in your life.
Now, the strange thing is that's the other one I wrote down as being a standout track for me. As life's about to begin. I mean, again, I think it's so relatable, especially during lockdown, because you do that. You do reflect on things, and you spend a lot of time, as you say, with your own thoughts and in your own head, and you've only got your experience and your life to reflect on. So you do tend to replay things.
Yeah. And it's nice it's nice that you said that you you like that one, because although it's me reflecting back on my life, there's stuff in there that probably is a bit universal, that thing when you're in the dodgy flat with the leaking shower and the roof leaking, or the baby's crying, or all those things that are it's just common experiences, or nostalgia, or all those things that we all have, and so it's that, I think that's probably what you look to do as a songwriter, isn't it? You write a song that's very, very personal, and it should be honest and everything. But if other people think, oh, I get that, and I can relate to that as well, then you've sort of hopefully done your job.
Yeah, definitely. I think, they are fairly universal things that most people can relate to. I think it does help, though, the fact that I didn't realise that we're both of a similar age. So
right, okay, yeah, there we are.
We went through the same sort of things at the same sort of time, probably. So
yeah. I mean, it's funny, isn't it? Because so I've used an outfit called Lander to do the mastering of the album, and they help with the distribution as well. Right. So you get all these demographics coming back on what your audience looks like, and the age group, and there is it's definitely, there's a lot of men of a certain age in there, Andy. Let's put it that way.
Well, that's good. It's not a bad thing. Let's listen to one more track from the album.
Sun on a beach in old South Wales, trying to write a song, could never find a pen. The kettle's boiling, the doorbell's ringing again. Sitting on your sofa, life's about to begin. Life's about to begin. Life's about to begin. Life's about to begin. Life's about to begin.
It's an interesting mix of songs though you've got on the album, because I mean, as you say, there are some that are very reflective. There are some that are very that are based in like historical sort of like folklore type things and that sort of stuff, but it works really well as a mix of songs. It's kind of although there is a kind of overarching theme, they are very individual songs, but they work well together as a collection.
Oh, thank you. Well, I felt that. I think, I'm very pleased with it. I look back at it now and I think there's things I would do differently and all the rest of it. But I do feel there is a theme with it, and I do feel it sort of sits together in a sort of strange way. Although it is quite a diverse bunch of songs, really. And I suppose above all, I wanted it to be just going back to that whole progressive rock scene of the 70s. And I think maybe one of the things that I didn't always love about that was, there's some great instrumental playing in that music, but I probably what I really loved was some of the really great songs that came out of that era, and so I wanted, I wanted to make it an album of songs more than necessarily an album of sort of instrumental. And there's bits of instrumental on there, but it was about the songs really. And because I guess that's what I've always loved. I like extended music. I like extended songs in that progressive thing, but I love songs actually, and I prefer songs to just instrumental noodling, if you like.
Yeah. I think sometimes some of the prog stuff got a little bit it got a bit overextended, a bit kind of like self-indulgent, and it was a bit kind of it was like 15-minute long songs just for the sake of it, rather than actually things that did anything. They didn't go anywhere. It all kind of got a bit samey after a while.
Yeah,
I think the bands themselves, a lot of the bands themselves started doing. I mean, you take like with Yes, doing things like Owner of a Lonely Heart and that sort of thing. When they got into using a bit more electronic sort of stuff and doing shorter songs that were, that could be played, on the radio and things like that. And it's like sort of, I think they realised after a while that they had to kind of do something to kind of.
Absolutely, and I think that they some of their older fans are critical of that, but Owner of a Lonely Heart, it's a brilliant song. It's a brilliant piece of songwriting. Yeah. So, I think back to one of my favourite bands with that early Genesis stuff. Although there was instrumental stuff in that, it was all about the songs. And you listen to them talking about it now, and they talk about the songs. And I'm also a big Who fan, and that was all about the songs. Some really, really great songwriting there. And so that's kind of stuff you aspire to, isn't it?
So, I mean, what do you want to do with this? Do you want to take it out and play these songs live? Or?
I'd love to. Yeah, I'd love to do that. So I mean, for me, one of the sort of interesting things about doing the album was, oh Christ, I've got to sing. I mean, because I'm a drummer and I'm a guitarist, but I've not really sung very much, and so I had to try and make the most of my voice. And there's a certain amount of security if you're doing a gig sitting behind a drum kit. Actually, standing at the front and singing your own songs is something I want to do, but something that I've not yet done. So I think
you could do both. You could sit behind the drum kit and sing.
Now that's quite tough. Don Henley did it pretty well, but that's actually, he made it look very easy, but that's actually really, really tough. And Phil Collins as well, But so I'm trying to improve my sort of guitar playing and singing to a level where I feel I can actually go out and try and do some of this stuff live.
Well, to be honest, having listened to the album, I wouldn't have thought that you hadn't sung before. I mean, it's there's nothing wrong with your singing.
Thank you. I mean, I think it's I'm pleased with what I did on the album. It's just about it's almost strengthening your voice. So I know I've got the stamina as a drummer to go and play a gig. Yeah. As a singer, I need to kind of build that, and so I've been trying to sort of just train my voice a little bit better so I can sing better for longer, rather than getting through a litre of water after every couple of songs and things. So
I must admit, I used to be a singer, and I haven't done it for quite a while, to be honest. I'd like to get back into doing it sometimes. Occasionally I sort of like try my hand at just some karaoke or stuff like that, but it's not the same sort of thing. But it can be quite.
I think it's also, I think, without a doubt, it's that standing up in front, I admire, goodness me, I admire anybody who stands up with a guitar in front of an audience and just sings their own songs, because that requires not just some talent and ability, but an awful lot of guts to do that, particularly doing your own songs, because you're kind of vulnerable. You're not doing cover songs, you're doing your own stuff. And so I think what I will probably do when I am going to do it, what I'll probably do is I'll build some covers into the set as well, some music that I like that I can play, and I'll build that in and then throw some of my own songs in and then sort of see how that goes. But I would love to I would love to get a band together and actually perform some of the songs a bit more like they sound on the album, rather than just doing acoustic versions of them. So that's my aim. There's quite a lot of flute on the album as well. You probably heard. So my daughter Hannah is a really top flautist, and so I'm sure she'd be up for it. So
it's good experience playing live. It's not something that I don't think there is anything quite like it.
Yeah, absolutely. And in terms of really discovering your songs and actually making your songs as good as they can be, that they should be honed over live performance, really. And so that's definitely something I want to do.
So okay, you want to be out there performing, but what about more recording? Have you got another album planned, or?
Yeah, so I'm working on. So the thing about the Wild Winds Coldly Blow was when I wrote my first song, which I probably finished about July last year, and then I wrote another song by the September, and then I thought I'm going to try and write an album of songs by Christmas, and so I set myself this ridiculous tight schedule of at the very end it was writing a song almost every 2 to 3 weeks, but actually it was a great discipline, and it's songwriting's a bit like a muscle. You just got to exercise it, and actually by having that discipline and setting myself a real clear target, I managed to sort of get. I'd written 10 songs, and then I axed one, and so there's 9 songs on the album. Yeah. But actually, and then I spent the first half of this year really sort of re-recording parts and doing the mixing and everything like that, and sort of more additional vocal parts and just the arrangements and things, and so I released the single in June, the album in July. So I've had a bit more time this year to just approach it in a slightly less frantic way, really. And so I've written a couple of new songs which I'm sort of finishing off now, which I'm pleased with. But the other thing which is interesting, learning as you go along with this, it's quite hard releasing an album of new music, because releasing a single is quite easy, because you send it out to all your mates, you send it out to everyone, here's a single. It's, well, in the case of Distant Traveller, it's 8 minutes of their time, but actually usually it's 3 or 4 minutes of your time. And so it's not that much of a commitment in time to listen to. You send them out an album, there's 50 minutes of music there for someone to listen to, and that requires a different level of commitment. So what I might do is maybe get 4 songs together and do an EP and just get some more music out there sooner rather than later, I think. And then, I'm sort of thinking of ideas and trying to write all the time, but I probably could do with a bit more time to really get the arrangements exactly as I want them. So I don't think I'll set myself such a tough deadline again.
No, I mean, a lot of bands go down, seem to be going down that route of putting singles and EPs out rather than full albums, and then they work their way up to, doing a full album. And there's a couple of bands I've talked to, they've put 4 or 5 EPs out. And then what they've done is they've taken a couple of tracks from each EP with a couple of new tracks and put that out as an album.
Yes, so, I think that's probably what I'll do for this one. It's just easy. It is easier to promote, and concentration spans aren't necessarily great these days. So
the other thing is that it keeps you in the public eye whilst you're working on the album. Because if you just take a year to write a new album, then by the time the second one comes out, people have forgotten about the first one. Whereas if you do a few singles and EPs in between, it keeps your name there. It keeps people aware of you.
You're absolutely right. I mean, the thing that is also really time consuming is the sort of promotion bit. If you want to try and do that in any way seriously, and that I have to say, when I was doing the album, I was quite looking forward to doing the promotion bit. And then once you start doing the promotion, you think, I much prefer doing the album. It's a lot of work, often for not a great deal of reward. And
I understand that completely.
I mean, not that I'm not doing it. I'm not doing this for the money. I'm doing because I enjoy doing it. But I look at my little earnings chart on Lander for my streamings, and I think, oh my God, I've got enough for a pint. You know, I mean, it's just and it's really hard to get those numbers up, and you know, submitting to playlists, you know, giving things like Facebook attention. It all takes time, and I'm not a natural, you know, I'm of that age, you know, as you are. We're not. I mean, you know, you're doing this. That's brilliant, but I'm not a natural social media animal, I think.
No, I know what you mean. I mean, I've found it difficult promoting my music. Oh, yeah, I'd still make music, and I provide difficult promoting music, and you know, I'm promoting this at the same time. I also do a film review podcast, so it's kind of I spend more time doing this recording these and promoting these than I do almost anything else.
It is time consuming, isn't it?
Yeah. Not that I don't enjoy it. It's great.
No, I mean, and the really nice thing is when you do get, you know, you talk to people and you get feedback, that some people like your song, and that's fantastic. People that you've never, you know, never met before send you feedback and they like your song, and that kind of makes it all worthwhile.
Absolutely.
Or the fact that you've got streams in some weird and remote parts of the planet, and you think, well, how the hell did somebody hear my music in Saudi Arabia? I mean, it's
a funny thing. I can't remember who it was. I remember years ago seeing an interview with somebody, and they said that their idea of fame was going to a place that they'd never ever been before, and for one person to come up to them and say, I've heard one of your songs and I liked it. And that is fame, because of the fact that there was no way that you could have touched that person's life any other way than through your music.
Yeah. That's right. That's absolutely right.
Yeah.
And you know, things like Facebook and Instagram, you have to use those, and they are great ways of connecting with sort of like-minded people who might like, you know, there's loads of progressive rock groups out there on Facebook, you know, and there's some very enthusiastic people sharing loads of music on there, and some of it is new music and some of it is old music, but it's a great community.
I mean, having done this podcast this year, I've realized there are a lot of bands out there, a lot of musicians out there who are working on, you know, a lot of good music, and that, you know, it's been tough this last couple of years giving them a platform, or them getting a platform, and you know, I'm glad to have been able to have done something small, even, you know, however small it is, to kind of help with that. But it's you know, there's a lot of good music out there, and I think people need to just go out and look.
I totally agree, and I've discovered some, you know, fantastic sort of bands where just by, you know, you follow someone on Instagram who they kind of look like the sort of music that you like, you listen to it, you know, they give you some feedback, you give them some feedback, and it's some great music, and you just think, yeah, more people should hear this.
Definitely.
And I mean, you know, there really are there's some fantastic music out there if you go looking for it. Get out in the mainstream and go looking for different.
I mean, that's the thing. That's how I came across your music. It's you know, talking to other people, you know, they say what they're into, and you listen to that. But also just going out and looking and see what new bands are coming out, or what bands are out there playing. You know, look around locally at your local clubs and that sort of thing, clubs and pubs, and see what bands there are there, because there are a lot of bands out there doing their own stuff. It's just finding them. That's the thing.
There are, and some, you know, some really great bands that just are still sort of quite under the radar. But you know, you see them live and you think, oh, that is a superb band, you know. But
well, I mean, I really like your album. I think it's a great album. It really is. I hope that it does well and that you do well, and I can't wait to hear new stuff from you. At some point, it'd be great to see you out there playing live, and to come and see you live. That'd be fantastic. It's been really good talking to you. Thank you very much for doing the show.
Nice one, Andy. You too. Thanks for doing this. Yeah.
No,
Brilliant.
it's no problem. I will post links, as I always do, as everyone knows. I'll post links to social media and to your YouTube and other music sites and that kind of thing, so people can check your stuff out for themselves. Yes, look out for DaiDrum and check out music and all that kind of stuff. Thank you very much, David, for joining us. And thank you to everyone for tuning in, and I'll see you again soon. Bye. Talking Music with Big Andy.